Hello and welcome to our special interview in the run-up to this year's Dubai Airshow. It's taking place from the 17th to the 21st of November. My name's Amandeep and I'm delighted to chair this year's edition. And the space conference this year, mark your calendars, I'll be chairing it. It's from the 17th and 18th of November across the first 2 days of the Dubai Airshow. Today, you are in for a real treat. We've got an exclusive preview with the stars of our show. I'm going to call it our astronauts interview. Not only one, not only two, but three astronauts beaming in from across the world, joining us live for this interview. And they've all achieved historic firsts in their own right. So I've got my space facts here with me. Allow me now to introduce them and bring them into our show. Let me first start with Claude Nicollier, who's the first Swiss in space and a veteran of 4 space shuttle missions, including the Hubble telescope. We're going to be hearing about that in a moment. He's an astrophysicist and a test pilot. The accolades, they are many there. Hi, Claude, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Amandeep?
Very well, very well. Let me introduce our other astronauts as well. Dr. Sian Proctor, she's beaming in from New York City, I believe, and she has made history as the first African-American woman to pilot a spacecraft on SpaceX's Inspiration 4 mission. Dr. Proctor, welcome, and we can't wait to hear about this, as well as the fact that you are a visionary artist.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so pleased to be here.
Fantastic. Now, beaming in from Norway, we have Rabea, who is the first German woman in space, a robotics researcher and representing a new generation, may I say, that's shaping Europe's role in exploration, including extreme environments. I'm really intrigued to hear about this. Welcome, Rabea.
Thank you so much for these great words and thanks for the invitation.
Fantastic. I think it's fair to say that you all have a very unique angle on human space flight, space agencies, commercial, civilian, a lot of different experiences that we're bringing on board here. We're going to hear a lot more of this in the Dubai Airshow. But as a sneak preview for our audience joining us today, may I please begin with you, Claude? I mentioned there in the introduction 4 space shuttle missions, including 2 to service the Hubble Space Telescope. Give us an insight. How did that feel to work on such an exciting project, knowing that your work and your team's work was going to change how humanity literally views the universe?
Yeah, it was a wonderful feeling, especially the very first servicing mission of Hubble, which was in December 1993. 7 crew members, there were 6 Americans and myself, went to Hubble 3 years after its deployment on orbit, which was in April 1990. And we had to fix it because we had a major optical problem and it was really not seeing very well for the first 3.5 years. And we had to make it functioning again and productive, and it worked. And it was a very, very satisfying mission and very important for the astrophysical world and for humanity. Finally, it revealed the world of galaxies very far away in a manner that had never been achieved before.
And Claude, we're still seeing the benefits of that wonderful work to this day. Dr. Proctor, to bring you in to shine a light on that historic mission that you took part in. I mentioned there you are the first African-American woman to pilot a spacecraft. Now that was on SpaceX's Inspiration 4 mission in 2021. What was the reaction to that and what was your feeling like being on that mission?
It was a dream come true to be on Inspiration 4, and we were actually the 4th ever human launch by SpaceX. They did, in 2020, they did Demo 2, which was the return to space for American capacity from the United States. And then they had launched Crew 1 and Crew 2, so 3 NASA flights. And then SpaceX and Jared Isaacman were bold enough to do Inspiration 4, the first all-civilian mission to orbit the Earth. And I think at first, a lot of people thought, this was pretty risky. But again, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. I actually won my seat through a Twitter contest, which most people do not know. I got selected as an artist and a poet, and it was a dream that I'd had since I was a kid. I was almost a NASA astronaut. I got down to the yes/no phone call in 2009 for being a NASA astronaut, and you get the no side of that, and you're like, oh my goodness, am I ever going to make it to space? But then all of a sudden, commercial space opened up, and Inspiration 4 really changed the way we thought about who can go to space and have access, particularly from an orbital perspective.
Dr. Proctor, that's extraordinary. A Twitter competition, and also that you were in the final run-up to NASA. It was fated. It was meant to be. And it gives hopes to the rest of us that perhaps we just need to enter a few more competitions. No, I'm certainly not going to downplay the feat that it takes to be an astronaut. We're extraordinarily impressed with all of you. Rabea, joining us from Norway today. You, of course, were part of Fram 2 mission, the first crewed flight to orbit Earth's polar regions. Now, what was the scientific significance of this? And where do you think, studying these kind of extreme conditions in extreme environments, what can they teach us about the future?
Yeah, oh, great questions. I think extreme environments really bring out the best of us, or hopefully they should, because in these environments, the rules change and we have to think differently, right? Which is why it's such a great challenge in spaceflight. Spaceflight, though, or space in general, is just one of many different extreme environments. So the Arctic or polar regions would be one. Actually, COVID isolation already is extreme as well, because you've got isolation. So I think many of us experienced that in 2020. So it's really important to understand how we behave as people, as humans, in these conditions, and what we can learn and extrapolate from that to, let's say, every single other condition there is.
And I really appreciate you all answering our rapid fire questions to get to know you all. And as you mentioned there, Rabea, that kind of sense of isolation. Well, we certainly won't be isolated between the 17th and the 21st of November, because we'll be at the Dubai Airshow. Hands up, who has attended the airshow beforehand? I think I know the answers, but for our audience, who has attended? You're all first. That's what I thought.
Yes.
That's brilliant. And that's what we want. We want first in terms of our stars on the show, first in terms of the audience, and then it's that wonderful networking experience with the familiar faces here across the airshow. As I mentioned, the first 2 days, the 17th and the 18th of November, is a dedicated space conference. I'm delighted I'll be able to chair it. It's hosted by the UAE Space Agency. A quick insight from all of you, the power of coming together, of having these types of conferences and talking about the future of aerospace, and also sharing the kind of personal experiences you've given an insight into today. Claude, if I could begin with you.
Yeah, well, in fact, the shuttle program joined relatively few nations. It was a US program, of course, and ESA was invited to join in 1978, that's when we had the first selection of the ESA astronaut, including myself. Then we had Canada providing the robot arm. Of course, in the International Space Station program, we have many more nations that have joined, 15 nations total. And I think the future is definitely in cooperation, including with the UAE, the Emirati. We have had already a few Emirati astronauts, and we have a moon program, a Mars program, a program to the asteroid belt. There's no doubt that the Emirates are really moving forward very rapidly in space exploration. We'll be working together in the future, and I look forward to it.
Fantastic. And I'm glad you mentioned the UAE astronauts. I've had the pleasure of interviewing them, and they're an inspiration. They're national heroes here, as you all are in your home countries and across the world. Dr. Proctor, if I can bring you in now, because on that inspirational note, what are you seeing as the progress in including more inclusivity and diversity when it comes to the selection of astronauts and the space sector as a whole?
It's been tremendous. When I applied for Inspiration 4, I wrote a poem about how we need to create a Jedi space, a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space for all of humanity. And if you look from our mission till now, boy, commercial space has flown the youngest person at 18. They've flown the oldest person, I think, at 92, who's Ed Dwight. Amazing story. He was supposed to be the first African-American to go to space under Kennedy, and then Kennedy's assassination derailed that. And so for him to be able to do that, Wally Funk is another person who got to go to space. And you just see more women. We've had the 100th woman to go to space. And it's just so much is opening up in space exploration and the access in different ways, whether it's orbital or suborbital. It's really causing this hope that you can be a person that can go and reach for the stars and be successful at that. And I want everybody around the world to have that dream, and not just have the dream, but see that dream manifested. And that's what's happening with commercial space.
Really glad you mentioned there, Dr. Proctor, about Jedi Space. Love the name, but that just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive. And it really does speak to the future. And on that note, if I bring in Rabea to build on your points there, Dr. Proctor, Rabea, that new generation of aeronautics, and you represent this, exploring extreme environments. Have you seen much progress from your perspective when it comes to recruitment, training, retention across the space sector?
Yeah, I think the mindset really changes. I think that the mindset that we needed back in the days when we didn't have technology as advanced as now was we need the best of the best. Like Claude, you're my hero. So that generation of astronauts really had a lot to learn to be able to pilot the spacecraft. Now we have spacecraft that can fly themselves, which is first of all super cool. Me as a roboticist, I think that is already sci-fi that we're living now, but also means that more people can go to space, right? Because the training will be shorter. We still train for a year, but the idea is that in the future you have much, much less training. And if we want to really live and work as humanity in space, right, then it's not enough to send just a few people like it is now, but we need to understand how everybody really behaves and reacts to space, and how we can get more people to space, right? So I think we are living in times of change right now. And our mission, for example, was the first one without any aviation pilot on board. So we can see already changes in the background now. And I think we will just see more diverse backgrounds in the future as well. And I'm super excited for that.
I love all the points you've made here. You all introduced so many interesting threads for us to pull on, but we will pull on them all at the airshow itself. Rabea, you mentioned there Claude as one of your heroes. You're all our heroes, so we're really pleased that you'll be joining us. And I think this note that there is a different era that we're in now, that space travel, human space flight, but also the technology has evolved over the decades. That's really interesting to see. But looking ahead to the future, the next generation of leaders, I should also plug on Friday of the Airshow, we have a special dedicated program too on this as well. And I know, Dr. Proctor, you'll be joining me on that Friday for that. Claude, I mentioned there that change, that involvement, and also what we can learn, the lessons from your era in space. What would be something that's paramount to your mind right now? We often look at lightning speed change of AI technology, but what are some of the lessons that we should really kind of retain at this stage as well?
Well, it's an evolution that exists in all areas of technology, whether it's in aviation and computing and in space travel as well. I remember the shuttle was full of switches. This was a cockpit designed in the 70s, like the Concorde and like the first Boeing 747, full of switches. And of course, the human-machine interface was not ideal. It meant quite a lot more training because of the intricacies of this multitude of switches. There were switches on the sidewall, on the front, and on the ceiling also. It was full of switches. Now, as Rabea and Sian well known, the Crew Dragon has basically no switches. It's touch screen. And that's an evolution that is very, very favorable, because in terms of a human interface with the machine, it's much easier, much more natural than a multitude of switches. In the future, obviously, we'll have quite a lot of artificial intelligence in order to take care of the tasks that are not well suited for humans. So that's the evolution. It's a very positive evolution, but I'm glad that, in fact, I'm another generation compared to my two companion astronauts here. I'm an earlier generation, but I lived through this, which is a fascinating period. And now Sian and Rabea lived to another area of technology, and of course it will be the future in 10 or 20 years from now, and it's going to be fascinating.
And your experience is fascinating to us all, Claude, because you are a real pioneer. So the fact that you're joining us here on the stage at the air show, we're super excited about this. I can see both Dr. Proctor and Rabea nodding along to this. On this note, in terms of AI replacing astronauts in space, this kind of controversial point, is there still a need for human space flight? What would you say, Rabea?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's really what I mean. It's also a question for here on Earth, right? A lot of people right now are wondering, oh, is AI going to take my job? So for exploration, I think there is robots that we are employing right now, right? So on Mars we have Perseverance right now, so you can get daily update pictures from Mars. It's a real world we're living in. While we also have human missions, and I think in the moment it is really a collaboration more than a versus. So it will be robots and people, because there's still a lot of tasks, especially decision making, adaptability, that humans are outperforming robots. So for example, oh, I find something that's interesting. How do I know what is interesting if I can't pre-program that, if I don't know what I will find? So I think it's a lot of these skills that we still have as humans, and also the drive why we explore. So curiosity, a sense of achievement, all these are very human drivers. So there is a very human side to exploration still. And I think for the foreseeable future, it will be more, the question will be, how do I collaborate with the robot better, more than how does the robot replace me?
I love hearing this, because we don't want the robots to replace you all. And I certainly don't want a robot to be taking my job, because I'm super excited about interviewing you all at the air show. Dr. Proctor, on that note, in terms of collaboration, international collaboration, of course, is at the heart of the future of space travel. It's been at the heart of it since the onset as well. Where do you foresee it going? And where do you think roles like events such as the air show, the Dubai Airshow, what kind of role do they play in that kind of international collaboration?
Oh, I think it's essential. When you have when we talk about that Jedi space, just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive, I grew up with Star Trek and Star Wars. It's a Star Wars acronym, but it's rooted in a Star Trek meaning that we will boldly go together. And my vision of, a united federation where we're all become, earthlings, and that we celebrate not our differences, but the things that we do together that advance human spaceflight, both on Earth and beyond. And I think that air shows like this is an opportunity to, again, bring that international community together to have these discussions. I've been very fortunate to be the U.S. Department of State Science Envoy for Space for the last year, and just traveling around the world and having these conversations of what does it mean for us to go together, and how do we do that successfully. I think Claude is an excellent example of what the shuttle and the International Space Station has done for humanity, thinking about how we can operate together in space. And we really need to bring that mentality to the moon and Mars and beyond. And those discussions happen now at events like the air show.
And again, as you mentioned there, that role that you play with the US envoy, speaking across the world, representing and also inspiring generations, that's so vital. And we're very lucky to have you as part of our air show. Claude, Dr. Proctor mentioned there your experience, but also how you are a beacon when it comes to kind of championing international collaboration. Where do you see the role of events like the air show being really kind of profound in bringing people together?
Well, of course, an air show is a huge attractor. And the fact that it is in Dubai, in the Emirates, is important, because in a way, this is a node of cooperation between the East and the West. We see this already with the airlines. A lot of people, when they go from Europe to Asia, they go via Dubai or via Abu Dhabi. And I think this feature of attraction as well from the East and from the West is going to be very, very valid. It will help mixing these two cultures. There will be a lot of people. It's going to be extraordinarily attractive, and I personally look forward very much to be part of that.
Fantastic. And Rabea, what are you looking forward to when it comes to your first appearance here at the Dubai Air Show?
Yeah, I think it's always so fun to just meet other space enthusiasts. I think space is a shared dream that all of us still have. It's like the little kid. It talks to the little kid in you, right? That is still so in awe and so in love with how the universe works. I think it's a great showcase also of why science are so cool. I mean, a lot of the things we do up there is just really understanding where do we come from? What are the basic questions of humanity? So for me, it's great to share this love for science and also encourage people to dream big and be outrageous in your dreams. I think is always another message that I like to address, because it's very easy to get intimidated, I think, by people not believing in you. But that's why it's even more important to talk about, hey, look, what is the future you actually want to achieve?
And I love that note. I mean, I don't think we can top that optimism, that dreaming big, but also the role that is played by bringing people together and saying, let's all believe in this kind of collective future together. On that note, I want to thank you all for your time today. I don't often like doing virtual interviews, but the excitement here is palpable and I can't simply wait. Dubai Airshow, please mark your diaries to our audience there. That's the 17th to the 21st of November. The first 2 days are the dedicated space conference hosted by the UAE Space Agency. I'll be chairing it and our wonderful astronauts will be with us. And I know certainly Dr. Proctor is joining me on the Friday as well for the Next Generation Leadership Programme. And maybe we can get Rabea and Claude to stay on for that as well. But we're super excited. All of the updates will be shared with you in the lead up to the air show. Put the date in your diaries. And to end on that big note, let's dream big and boldly go forward together. Thank you so much for your time today, Claude, Rabea, Dr. Proctor, and I look forward to seeing you all in person at the Dubai Airshow.